Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. You found us here at KGB Customs LLC where we like to share some of the most interesting and at least most important custom handguns that happen to come through our shop here in Ohio. I do a fair number of consignments and whatnot for guys, and that's how a lot of this stuff comes in. This one is actually more of an escrow, being the intermediary between a couple of individuals and who weren't exactly comfortable with dealing with one another, but were both comfortable with dealing with me. This gun is a pretty awesome gun from the 90s. Is a EGW custom 2011, so it's built on a STI International modular frame. This gun is in 40 caliber Smith & Wesson. A little bit about the 40 Smith & Wesson. It was developed between Winchester and Smith & Wesson in 1990. It debuted in 1990 in Smith & Wesson's third generation automatic model 4006, which would have been an all steel frame gun, double action, single action. It was kind of designed to replicate the performance of the reduced power FBI 10mm load. The FBI, of course, went to 10mm and then reduced the power and basically gave us what is now the 40 Smith & Wesson. The benefit of the 40 Smith & Wesson case over just reducing it into 10mm is it requires less magazine space, so it can be put into smaller guns. Not the case with this gun. Obviously this frame was designed around 45 length cartridges and will house any cartridge that a 1911 will house. The difference being, of course, in Smith & Wesson's third gen lineup, being able to put it in a 9mm size frame meant that the length of pull, so to speak, from front to back, front of the trigger to back of the gun was reduced. The grip circumference was reduced, and overall weight was reduced. So it was a pretty popular cartridge for probably a couple decades. It wasn't until USPSA started cracking off new divisions that it really saw much action in the action pistol sports. But the USPSA started making new divisions as gun technology and race gun competitions began to grow in popularity, and limited division was kind of a sweet spot for the 40 caliber Smith & Wesson, and that's what this gun was built to shoot, would be limited division USPSA. A little bit about the divisions in USPSA. There's I'm going to quote an article written by Caleb Giddings on the matter. The United States Practical Shooting Association represents a large action shooting organization in the United States with 30,000 plus members. Now, this is an older article. That number is probably higher now. And attendance at major matches frequently in the hundreds. It would create an extremely crowded landscape if all the shooters competed heads up against each other. However, just as in automobile racing, there are different divisions and classes based on the type of car or the equipment. So in USPSA is the same. In USPSA, there are 7 divisions, each defined by the type of guns and allowed modifications to that gun. Here's a look at those divisions. So we have open division, which is pretty much as it would sound, wide open. Commonly you'll see frame-mounted optics, so the dot is not reciprocating with the slide. The dot stays in the same place throughout the shot and follow-up. You'll see compensators on almost all open division guns. Some of them will just be ported, but often there will be compensators, and sometimes compensators and porting. There is no a weight restriction and no magazine capacity restriction. So there's major and minor. Major is gonna mean your 38 supers, your 9mm majors, 38 super comp, 40 Smith & Wesson, and of course 45 ACP. The 40 Smith & Wesson kind of bridging the middle there between the 3.55 caliber guns and the 45 caliber guns. And that's really the next division being limited. The restrictions there are red dot sights are not permitted. So you're running an iron-sighted gun like this, and you have a slightly restricted magazine length in double stack guns, which you see this. This is of course a legal magazine length. Of course you can get the long sticks, which you can run in open in a double stack, but not in limited. This magazine, I believe, will hold 19 completely maxed out, 18 comfortably, 18 rounds. The guns don't really have much in the way of modification restrictions in limited class. They of course cannot have compensators, cannot have porting. They can have mag wells, they can have adjustable sights, bull barrels. There's no weight restriction. So really you could build as big and heavy of a iron-sighted gun as you wanted, pretty much. And if it wasn't ported, run limited class. And lots of guys ran limited class because iron sights were the default, of course, in the 90s, with red dots just coming on the scene. Other classes are limited 10, which is pretty much the same as limited, but the magazines are limited to 10 rounds. You've got production, and production, the guns have to fit in a box, and it's minor only, so 9mm kind of rules production. You've got single stack, which they do run major and minor, 1911 type pistols only in that class. Revolver, you've got PCC, which is pistol calibered carbines. And that's kind of an odd division to add into a pistol shooting competition, but it is there because guys want to be able to practice and compete with those guns, and they don't really fit anywhere else other than maybe Steel Challenge or something like that. And the latest division is carry optics. And carry optics really kind of killed a lot of the limited class desire out there. More guys are into carry optics because you can run a slide mounted optic in it. And it's turned a lot of these guns out onto the market, these 40 caliber iron sighted double stacks. You could of course slap a red dot on this, but you're competing against minor power factor guns, so 9mm with more capacity and less recoil. So you're really at a disadvantage there. Limited, excuse me. So that's really what you need to know about limited division and what these guns were built for. They had their heyday, certainly. I want to say from around, I don't know when limited was introduced, but from around 2000 to 2023, limited division was probably one of the most popular divisions for guys getting started. You know, buying their first custom competition gun. Many of them ran these double stack 40s. I know I have serviced a number of them over the years, and it was certainly the style of gun I saw the most of as far as competition guns go, short of maybe bullseye guns. And so that now we're getting to the gun. The features on this gun, of course, we've got it looks like a Dawson fiber optic front. We've got a Nolan match barrel that is a bull barrel, and it is Wilson Nolan ramped. We've got a steel standard dust cover length on this frame. It is the slightly heavier dust cover, but not the monolithic dust cover. Moving back the gun, we've got a Bomar fully adjustable rear sight. We've got a King's ambi safety, neat some neat tricks on this gun from George Smith and probably Jim Milks too at the time. We've got a screw threaded in here. I'm sure it's hard to pick up in the video, but that is an over travel stop for that offside thumb safety paddle. So to prevent these from breaking, because they are a tongue and groove type arrangement, that over travel stop prevents you from slamming this paddle down and tweaking that tongue and groove engagement, and those will eventually break. They always did, all the way back to the original Swensons. If you were too hard on that weak side paddle, you would eventually break that interface. I've got a large mag well there. As you can see, it's got some tracks on it, so the gun has had a few reps. Overall, the gun is really in pretty incredible shape. The blued finish shows some holster wear, which you'd expect to see because these guns would have been out of the holster to be shot. So every stage would have been in the holster and back out of the holster, but not excessive. And the gun has not been shot loose or shot to pieces. Internally, it doesn't look to have more than, say, maybe 5,000 to 7,000 rounds through it, which is just getting started in a USPSA competitive gun. A little bit about EGW. The company was started in 1991 by George Smith. Here is the EGW story from EGW's website. I'll just read it to you. I still remember the feeling I got when my father took me out shooting for the first time. The gun was a 1922 Springfield break. That was a bolt action 22, meant to be like a 1903 Springfield Trainer. They were chambered in 22. And I was 6. I've been hooked on guns ever since. A love for guns runs in my family. My grandparents were NRA instructors and my dad was an avid gun collector. I started tinkering with rifles early on, curious how they worked. In my early 20s, I took a 2-year correspondence course on gunsmithing and completed it in 5 months. Soon after, I went to a local gunsmith's to ask him some questions about bluing. And 2 hours later, I walked out with a job. 5 years later, I decided it was time to open my own shop and was fortunate enough to be in a position to create Evolution Gunworks. That was in 1991, starting out with a small smithing shop and 4 manual machines in a 1,600 square foot space in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. EGW quickly gained a reputation for excellence. After more than a decade of doing custom work for well-known competitive shooters, including Doug Koenig and Travis Tomasi, we have doubled our space in Doylestown, outgrowing that, and moved into a 5,500 square foot space in Quakertown, where we transitioned into manufacturing parts and accessories. Our next move was across the parking lot to a 23,000 square foot space. Today, EGW is one of the largest suppliers of scope mounts, 1911 pistol and AR and rifle parts and accessories in the United States. And that brings us to today. EGW stopped working on guns in the early 2000s, which is, kind of what leads me to dating this gun in the late 90s build. And EGW got so involved in the parts manufacturing business that took over for them. And working on guns was no longer an efficient way to make money. His parts were in high demand in the early 2000s and still are to this day. I remember my first EGW part I ever bought was a scope base. He made a scope base for a rifle that I had bought that nobody else made a Picatinny base for. And I've bought many thousands of dollars worth of parts from George in the years since. George and crew have designed and manufactured many of the favorite parts of custom 1911 pistol smiths even today. From their HD line of parts and of course their innovative solutions for the gunsmith. Both in tooling and fixturing and in parts. The whole industry certainly owes George a thanks, not only for his great pistol smithing, which is a shame that it had to go by the wayside, but I understand as a businessman, sometimes you do have to ride the horse that's going the fastest. And for him, it made sense to transition into the parts business, and it's been really good to him since. With a team of, I think, 30 or 40 people now, and dozens of CNC machines, they are just churning out parts and accessories for the gun industry. And I can't think of any any corner of the industry that he hasn't dabbled in somewhat, from shotgunning to rifles, even military rifles, and AR-15 style rifles, and of course our beloved 1911 and 2011 style pistols. I think I'll go back through my old videos, but I think this is only the second custom 2011 I've had on the channel. I don't get that many of them through, I guess, that are really custom guns. You know, the staccatos and whatnot. But true, you know, boutique custom guns are kind of what I try to make my videos about, and historically interesting customs. But this one certainly tipped the scale and got me to sit down and make a video quick for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I appreciate you all tuning in. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. You can follow the link in the description to sign up for our email list, and you'll hear about all the shop news there. We appreciate you.